Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Patrick, I am so thankful for you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the opportunity to chat with you about Magic the Gathering every week. I'm thankful for all kinds of stuff, but this week I'm mostly thankful for some Rivals of Ixalan spoilers.
Yeah, I am. I'm with you, man. Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan spoilers were a narrow second to me behind your family and my family. But coming up with 5 preview cards to kind of wrap our minds around is going to give us quite a bit to dive into, because this is like a pretty good smattering of Rivals of Ixalan, right? I mean, there's a lot going on here.
I think almost all the colors are represented. Not all, but almost all the colors are represented. We got some lands, some artifacts, and we've got some cards that are definitely going to see play.
Well, you got one you in particular have your eyes on?
Oh, I mean,
a new one that you've got your eyes on?
So let's start where the inner Timmy in us always starts, where it's big and dumb and green. And did I mention big? How about Ghalta Primal Hunger? Very hungry. This is a 12/12 Elder Dinosaur. It's a legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. For the low price of 10 GG, you get a 12/12. But wait, there's more. Ghalta Primal Hunger costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. Also, it has trample.
Interesting. So I wonder, first of all, what the distinction is between Elder Dinosaur and Dinosaur Avatar.
Well,
like in Ixalan, they had the Awakening Sun's Avatar, and there were 4 avatars. It's interesting. I wonder what the difference is.
The last time there was legendary, the equivalent, let's say, of legendary creature Elder D something, it was, Nicol Bolas and Arcades Sabath, is that his name? Chromium.
Yeah, Arcadius Sabbath.
Yeah.
Chromium.
That guy, Nicol Bolas obviously being the most.
Victus Asmati.
Yeah. But maybe this is like next level Nicol Bolas, but dinosaurs instead of dragons.
I don't know, man. What I do know is that this 12/12 for 12 has a couple abilities. The first of which is that it has the trample. But more to the point, it has the ability of Ghalta Primal Hunger costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control.
Anything that starts with costs X less to cast, I think we got to look twice at it, right? That's one of the most powerful abilities we've seen over the course of many formats. It's the kind of ability that takes a Gurmag Angler from completely unplayable at its normal, upper right casting cost to format staple in Modern, in Legacy, in any format where you can just, do the delve, get stuff into your graveyard. If there's one thing that I know about green, it's that it can get power into play, usually pretty quickly. And besides which, I know this is going to sound weird, but 12/12 for 12 isn't that bad. It's not good. Don't get me wrong. It's not good. But it's not that off.
You are weird.
Okay.
You are right. That does sound weird.
But it has this other thing, right? You're going to have, you're going to have things like Long Tusk Cubs. You're going to have stuff like Hydras. Those guys have power. They have a lot of power. Your elves these days have 2 power. I think in a reasonable game with the green creatures that are getting played right now, this guy is going to have a discount of 4, 6, 8, something like that, right?
Why not 10?
Could be 10. Yeah, because they're all buffing anyway, right? Not only
I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to do.
the Teamer energy guys are buffing with their own abilities. The Long Tusk Cubs and the Hydras are buffing with their own abilities. And the Simic energy guys are buffing with pump spells and, making them flying and all kinds of stuff. So there's going to... If you wanted to create a structure where this guy was discounted, this Dinosaur was discounted at a high rate, you could create that structure.
I've got one for you.
Sure.
Regisaur Alpha, untap Galta Primal Hunger. No other cards. No other mana needed.
A wise man in the upper right-hand corner of the United States once said that it was all about the dinosaurs. I think that might finally be true. That's
the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, like in Vermont. That's where Jamie's from.
Jamie Wakefield?
Jamie Wakefield.
It's all about the dinosaurs. Got it. Okay. Yep, absolutely. So does that mean you're in for Regisaur Alpha?
I mean, I'm in for... That's a hasty 12, right? He's coming...
That's Gabe. That's 22.
He's coming in and he's trampling. Yeah, that seems pretty cool. I think that's certainly...
23 even. Jesus.
I think that's certainly a place that I might want to start looking. That seems like a really powerful synergy. And the other thing about that is it's a structure that it potentially is fast enough that you're not automatically blanked by the Scarab God. Right? Like, that's actually the problem with a lot of these theoretically good creatures, is that if you just get slowed down too much, the Scarab God's just going to take over the game, but not if you're just killing them.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty big. That's pretty big. What do you think about this in Modern, with in some kind of a deck full of things like Tarmogoyf? Or perhaps in some kind of an elf deck.
So,
no.
In an elf deck, I think it's not big enough. I think that I think that you want something that's like less practical and more broken than Galta Primal Hunger. Right? Like, the thing is, Galta Primal Hunger is just like it's just a pretty big creature that has trample, but then it has a built-in discounting thing. But it's not like a Craterhoof Behemoth, right? It's not this thing that just ends the game by itself. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't twist the game. It's just a big guy. In a lot of circumstances, somebody with the equivalent of a Terminate's just going to kill Galta, and he's not going to be that exciting. The same can't be said for Craterhoof Behemoth that turns your entire board of power that you were trying to exploit there into an unstoppable army in and of themselves. I do think your idea of the Tarmogoyf has some play, though, right? Because Tarmogoyf could be 6-7 or something. It's going to take a lot of edge off of Galta's casting cost, but you'll need more than one thing for the casting.
Knight of the Reliquaries and Tarmogoyfs. I mean,
maybe a Siege Rhino.
I don't know.
Here's one for you. Takes one down.
What about in Standard playing with the Colossus?
Ooh, the Colossus takes all 10. Takes all 10.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is whether or not that deck can summon GG, and I think that it can with some prismatics, right?
GG is right.
Yeah.
Plus, I think like Botanical Sanctums and who knows, right? I mean,
your Alpha idea, I'm super down for that one. That's just kill you, right? These other ones, I don't know. Does the Colossus deck need more gigantic creatures? Is that a thing that it wants? I feel like it has 3 Colossus in play half the time. It may or may not win.
I don't know. Just asking, man. I don't know. What about your BFF card, the one that gives one of your creatures +2/+0 and haste from Hour of Devastation?
Claim to Fame?
Yeah.
Oh.
You claim to fame this guy? Or flinging? I don't know.
Oh, I'd fling him. But the thing is, a lot of these things, they're very powerful, I'll grant you, but I think those feel win more-ish to me, right? I want to just get him in play. I think that he's a noble savage to get in play. We want to have his savage beatdown
All right. What about Karizev's expertise?
Like if somebody else has him?
No. You're using Karizev's expertise just because you like it, but you have the option to potentially give your guy haste in corner cases where you got that kind of mana.
Okay.
Besides, sometimes you'll steal your opponent's fatty, and that'll give you enough power, because if you steal something, as long as you steal something that has 4 power or more, you're actually making a profit. Well, you steal your opponent's the Scarab God, and then it saves you 2 extra mana. No?
I have a different question.
Okay.
So this is a card that we can imagine being a profitable inclusion in a fair number of different strategies, right? Like, I love your Regisaur Alpha idea. I think it's real easy with the current energy builds right now that you could get this guy into play pretty fast. Okay, look, there's a couple different ways that we can do that. Question I have is, how much machinery is going to have to come in with Rivals of Ixalan that you would actually want to go in the direction of Galta Primal Hunger versus some of the, Teamer Energy, Scarab God decks, red decks that we have right now?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, if you have 4 Autopec Huntmaster and 4 Regisaur Alpha, and there's, as long as there's some more dinosaurs and some interactions so that, I mean, a big step in the right direction would be like Rogue Refiner being banned.
Then like marginally fewer people will play energy. They're like, we still like this deck.
What about Saheeli Rai, man? Saheeli Rai could potentially double your power, or alternatively give your guy haste.
Yeah.
Samet, Voice of Dissent, flashing down, untap, drop the, Dude, there's so many ways to give haste. I don't know. You seem skeptical.
I like this card. I like the Regisaur Alpha haste aspect that you suggested. I think that I don't need haste. I don't need it.
You don't need haste?
I like it, but I don't need it. I think a 12/12 trample is, it's good. It's probably better than most of the stuff your opponent's going to be putting out that turn. And, let's see. But it's actively bad against some stuff, right? Like, it's bad against blue-white. It's, like, not particularly exciting against black-blue. It needs a context.
Okay, what if you're just workshopping out juggernauts? Like Slash Panthers and juggernauts and stuff? Because I bet it's pretty easy to get this guy down on like turn 2 or 3, right? Particularly, I mean, God, if you have an Elvish Spirit Guide. But get this guy down on turn.
Is this vintage?
Or, dude, if you have like Merit Ledge, you can just like if you're playing Legacy and you just like Dark Depths, with like the Thespians, you can actually.
I got it, yeah.
You can actually just drop all the Galtas you want for 2.
Well, no, it's legendary.
Oh, I know. But it'll be more than enough. You can drop all that you want. Like, for instance, let's say that either your opponent has a bunch of counter spells, or maybe that there's a Hall of Mirrors in play. Tell you what, man. Well, suffice it to say, this guy's a big, dumb, massive body. At least he's got trample.
He's real big, but not that dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb, very big.
Yep. Dude, I'm still waiting to through the breach this guy. Or maybe have a couple of this guy could be part of some kind of like Lord of I guess it's like the Mimeoplasm or something. I don't know, man.
Oh, man, you know that I love a Mimeoplasm, right?
Yeah. Agorio's Vengeance, 12. Boom.
I was all about Mimeoplasm.
That's not exactly as much as Annihilator.
What's the name of that Rakdos goblin that deals damage equal to its power? I was all about that. There's more.
Wait, mimeoplasm? What's a mimeoplasm?
No, the blue-green guy.
The blue-green guy.
Is that? Am I thinking of a different card?
You're not talking about the mimeoplasm, are you?
The combo finish of the blue-green.
Yeah,
guy
no. The mimeoplasm. I know what the mimeoplasm does. I thought you were talking about a mimeoplasm. I'm sorry.
I think we lost. I think we lost a lot.
So what's the next spot you want to look at, man?
I want to see if you're. Can I interest you in a different Elder Dinosaur? So there's not just one Elder Dinosaur that's been spoiled so far. What is your take on Tetzimoc, Primal Death?
That's pretty wild that this is a dinosaur, right? Like, black hasn't been exactly the dinosauriest dinosaur color. So this is like a pretty loud statement about sort of the evolving color distribution of dinosaurs in Rivals of Ixalan. This is 4 black for a 6/6 legendary creature Elder Dinosaur. So it's a 6/6 deathtouch, a la Grave Titan. 6/6 deathtouch, and then it's got black and reveal Tetzimoc Primal Death from your hand to put a prey counter on target creature. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. And then
during your turn.
Only during your turn. Ooh, interesting. And when Tetzimoc Primal Death enters the battlefield, destroy each creature your opponents control with a prey counter on it.
Wait, hold on. There's no limit to this, right? Like, the limit is B?
What do you mean? Well, no, I mean, you have to still have Tetzimoc Primal Death in your hand.
So, like...
the prey counter, it only happens once. Like, after he kills them all, they're dead and they lose their prey counter.
Like, for sake of argument, like, ho-hum, I'm trying to get up to 6 mana, but, like, I'm just using my black mana to just put prey counters on everything my opponent plays so that at the point that I have 6, everything gets splattered and I keep a 6/6. That's what this says.
A 6/6 deathtouch. Yeah, you get a Plague Wind. As long as you pay a black ahead of time, you're going to get the Plague Wind on 6.
I think this card's real good. Right? Like, it's got a lot of Black Gearhulk to it. It's got some Grave Titan to it. I don't know. It seems real good to me.
Yeah, I don't know. This doesn't make sense, man. Is this real?
It's like 14 Nekrataals, right? Like, it's however much B. I mean, obviously you have to stay alive to get to 6, right? Like, your opponent might bum rush you, or maybe they're going to play conservatively because you're revealing Tetzimoc, but it seems like a very, very powerful creature to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's also weird that this is rare instead of mythic. But this also, I don't know.
Galta was rare.
Yeah, I know, which also seems weird. This is, like, I don't know, is this... Yeah, so I don't know, man. This card is, like, weirdly good. This doesn't make sense to me. Wait, I gotta think, like, why... I'm trying to get why this can be like this. Like, a 6/6 deathtouch, it's already, like, quote-unquote good for 6, although in reality you wouldn't play a 5-cost 6/6 deathtouch. A 4-cost 6/6 deathtouch would be unreal, though. But, like, if you pay a black beforehand on your turn and let them know that, and then you drop this, I guess you have to mark 2 things for death. You have to mark at least 2 things for death to be, like, miles ahead, because if you only get 1 Nekrataal from your 6/6, you're only, like, kind of ahead.
Well,
I don't know. It depends. Maybe there's ways to get rid of prey counters, but this seems insane.
Well, think about kind of the delaying tactics that you can play in Standard also. For example, What if you're playing with cards like Gideon of the Trials or Thematic Compass? Thematic Compass is probably a poor example because it's not going to
Definitely.
flipped until after the 6th. But cards like that, right? That a wall, right? Like, is there a decent wall that you can play? Right, something that
just some dinosaurs.
Sure.
Like, I mean, Gideon's a good example, but I think as long as you're just like, how about the Scarab God?
Or how about Gifted Aetherborn, right? Like, people don't want to just run into Gifted Aetherborn with their good creature. So you have cards like that, like the people are just forced to commit more material to the board, and then what are they going to do? Like, slam in with everything? You're just going to set up a situation where you plague win them. I think that that's what this is implying, or people will just play really conservatively, and if they're playing conservatively, maybe you have to commit. If you're committing, then Tetzimoc is less impactful when it comes down.
God, I hope this isn't a standard format where this card isn't good. Because if this card isn't good, the format's probably just like Torrential Gearhulk, a bunch of cheap haste creatures and cantrip dudes. It would be really lame if the format was just a bunch of cantrip dudes, cheap haste creatures, and like Torrential Gearhulk and the Scarab God. But like,
and combo decks.
If people are just playing, and combo decks with no creatures. But like, if people are playing with real cards, I don't know. It's weird because like, why would they play with any real cards? This card seems to just completely invalidate real, like real cards. I don't know.
If your goal was to mess up Teamer energy, right? This card seems like it'll put a dent in it.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know that it's even that insane because it's not like this card is that good against Rogue Refiner. Glorybringer at least has haste. This isn't that good against the Scarab God. This isn't that. I mean, it's okay, but it's not that great.
It's okay against Rogue Refiner, but not great.
It's not that good against Bristling Hydra.
It's bad against Whirler Virtuoso, right?
It's not very good against any of the cards in their deck, really. I mean, it's okay.
Oh, it's great against Long Tusk Cub, and it's fine against.
No, it's not. You are dead to Long Tusk Cub if this is the card in your hand. I mean, come on, man.
I mean, you know what this card's really bad against? Really, really bad in Teamer Energy? Essence Scatter.
You know what this card is good against is anybody trying to play with the green one.
Oh yeah.
Anybody trying to play Galta Primal Hunger, they are a prime candidate to get Tetzimoc Primal Death. So yeah, I don't know, man. This card seems like I would hope this card is absurd, but I could imagine I could imagine numbers. I could imagine that if people are just playing with cantrip dudes, cheap haste creatures, and blue threats like Torrential Gearhulk, maybe Approach of the Second Sun or the Scarab God that invalidate interaction, that maybe this card doesn't actually work. But I would guess that this one is so bananas of a rate that it's good.
It is an exciting card, though, I think, in the abstract.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready for a little more excitement?
Always.
All right. I think this card's very exciting, and they built it to make sure you knew that it was exciting. First of all, it starts in the upper right-hand corner. Its casting cost is 2 blue-red, and they named it Storm. So just in case you were wondering, there's a new card, Storm the Vault. It's a legendary enchantment for 2 blue-red. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform Storm the Vault. So it's one of these flip permanents that becomes a land, like Thematic Compass or Treasure Map or Search for Escanta. It becomes Vault of Catlacan. And Vault of Catlacan has 2 abilities. One of them, it's a legendary land, is to tap for 1 mana of any color. Add that to your mana pool. The other one is tap to add you to your mana pool for each artifact you control. So implication, if you have 5 artifacts, you're at least getting a City of Brass that doesn't hurt you, and an ability to tap for 5U. Or
Yeah,
for
like
you. Yeah.
a Tolarian Academy that can also be used as a Utopia.
Yeah. So I think this card has some legs in my imagination, and it has I think quite a bit of conversation that can be spurred around it.
Yeah, I mean, like at the very least, if you're playing Storm the Vault in like some kind of a artifact heavy deck, because that's the primary thing you want to do with this, right? Like, it's not about every turn I can get a treasure. That's all well and good, right? Like, that's fine, I guess, but it's not even, that's not very much. It's mostly just if you can drop this and either already have 5 or more artifacts or have at least 4 and an attacker so you can go up to 5, then Vault of Catlacan comes down and gives you an instant 5 blue mana or more, right?
Oh, I think this is much more likely its uber powerful state is going to be when you're starting with 4 artifacts, right? And then you cast it.
Well, the nice thing, I was going to say, the nice thing about starting with 5, no, it even works with 4, though. As long as you attack and get a treasure, if you have 5 and it includes at least 1 treasure, then if your opponent tries to do something on the 4th turn, you can tap your vault for 5, sack the treasure, and then Gearhulk it. Like, you're already I don't know. I guess it depends on if you've already played that's a lot of cards you would have to have already played. But, I mean, even if you're playing Modern, it's like very reasonable to think that you can consistently flip Storm the Vault on turn 2.
Yeah.
Very consistent. Yeah, why not?
So like using an Affinity Shell?
I don't know. You could, but you don't need to. It could be in some kind of weird Second Sunrise deck.
Oh, got it. But then you have to commingle some rituals to get it out. I mean,
no, I don't know. There's like Moxes and stuff. I don't know.
Okay, I got you. I was thinking, just for standard, there's all kinds of stuff that makes Thopters, right? We got Thopter making things. We got some Captain Lantern Storm type stuff, some treasure making things that we might be playing. Obviously, you can get treasures from just the way that Storm the Vault would give them to you, but all that stuff's pretty cheap. And there's really, really, really great Thopter making things that cost less than 4 that you can play. And then once it flips, you got something substantial going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, a permanent that taps for 5 or more mana. Like, there's a lot of abuse cases, right? Like, for instance, isn't there a card in Kaladesh that you could just go infinite with this as long as this tapped for enough mana?
Which card?
It's like there's an artifact. Is it an artifact creature, like some kind of a assembler or something?
Oh, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but there's certainly some really powerful artifacts that you could combine with this, right? Like, I think that if you had a basis where you had a bunch of stuff that you could improvise with, combine it with Vault of Catlacan, you could do stuff like Whir of Invention for something big, and just cast whatever the big thing was out of your hand because you had the Vault. And then the other thing is, if you have some Thopters or whatever, and you're just getting in, you're constantly making more mana, you might have some kind of like just pull, right? Like a big pull. That might be a thing that you would want to do, and hopefully you'd find a way to
pull from tomorrow. Yeah.
But like the thing is, kind of the format is your oyster. If you're in a position where you get both a Utopia and kind of a Tolarian Academy, right? You just cast whatever you want. Like most of the situations that we're in, where we're thinking about, hey, should I try playing this card or should I try playing this card? It's because we're trying to play a game of sometimes limited resources or limited time, right? They're like, well, can I realistically play this many copies of, this Aftermath card with a 6 backside and pull and approach. All these expensive cards are I have to just jam a bunch of cheap cards in, but late in the game those cards are less powerful. I think if you build your deck to flip the Storm the Vault, you just cast the biggest thing that you can imagine.
Interesting. That seems reasonable, but it's gonna. I mean, so there's both the enablers is part of the question, but
Yep.
if the payoff is the payoff sufficiently better than other big stuff other people are doing, like Torrential Gearhulk or the Scarab God.
Well,
it could be if it's fast enough.
Like, just imagine cards that you might just want to play, right? That are good cards now, but then could become broken if you played them with Storm the Vault, right? Like, how about like a Treasure Map, right? Treasure Map's just a good card, right? You played Treasure Map at the last Pro Tour. I love Treasure Map also. That's a card that does some stuff that you want. It offers you some selection. It offers you some kind of weird acceleration later in the game. And among other things, it produces 3 artifacts for you. One of the things that is inherently powerful about this in combination with Treasure Map is if Storm the Vault does nothing but give you a stream of treasures over the course of the game, then it's just making it so that your flip Treasure Map, constantly has fuel. Because one of the, it's kind of downside of Treasure Map is you go through the 3 treasures that you get, then you're done drawing cards and you just have a colorless land. But that's a powerful synergy.
Dude, what about this with Nissa 5? Untap the land? Yeah?
Yeah.
There's a few cards. There's a few different creatures that can untap it. Vizier of Tumbling Sands is always an interesting card. Yeah. 2 and a blue, 1/3, tap to untap another target permanent.
Yeah,
and then obviously when you cycle it, you can untap target permanent.
So, but what are you going to do with like all that mana? That's I can't think of anything more creative than a pull. Is there a fireball that we can do? Just fireball somebody out? That's a
well, but what I mean is that okay. So if you flip this card, say you flip this card and you only have 1 treasure.
Yep.
You could have access to 6 mana, but if you have a Vizier of Tumbling Sands, a single Vizier of Tumbling Sands makes it so that you have 9 mana. And it hasn't even cost you a card. Well, 9 mana is enough where now you've already got enough to pull. You don't even have to wait. You can just pull for 7. A pull for 7 is a lot more exciting than a pull for 4.
Yes. It's about 3 more exciting.
Vizier of Tumbling Sands also got kind of new life breathed into it this past weekend, right? Like, it wasn't even it's not this, it's obviously not an artifact deck per se, but like Corey Burkhart's Grand Prix Top 16 deck made use of a whole bunch of cycling cards. I guess he didn't actually have the Vizier itself, but I don't know. I feel like there's got to be like some potential overlap here.
Oh, I love Corey's deck. One of the things I like about it is it's just, again, a deck that is fundamentally different than any of the other decks that was in the format before it. And finally, we have a deck. He was only 15th, only in quotes, but he's finally making good use of Drakehaven, which is one of the really hyped cards from Amonkhet. And, his deck's just doing all kinds of interesting stuff. His deck has 2 Curator of Mysteries for cycling creatures. But then he has a ton of other cyclers. He's got Censor, Hieroglyphic Illumination, Renewed Faith, and Countervailing Winds. I love Countervailing Winds in this deck. You made the point months ago that Countervailing Winds, and it's basically the same card as Supreme Will, but they just balance it a little bit differently, right? So it has Cycling 2 instead of Impulse for 3, but then a way more powerful counter ability going along. Later, but it's way more powerful.
Yeah, but way worse early on.
Yeah, but, even if it's just a Censor early on, that'll often catch them.
You also have 4 Cast Out and 4 Irrigated Farmland for additional cycling action.
Absolutely.
And it all matters because, like, Abandoned Sarcophagus, I guess that doesn't interact with the land ones, but Abandoned Sarcophagus works with Cast Out, Hieroglyphic Illumination, Renewed Faith, any of that. Plus, you can just, like, once you abandon Sarcophagus, you can just play Censors and Countervailing Winds out of your graveyard and have your opponent be largely locked out.
I mean, it's incredible. You can, like, cycle Renewed Faith, gain 2, draw a card, and then cast the Renewed Faith. Gain 6. Like, that is so backbreaking. Like, if you're just, like, have the Sarcophagus, and then you just, you know, settle the Wreckage or Fumigate or whatever against a creature deck or a red aggro deck, then, you know, the card that you draw is Renewed Faith. Whew.
Well, actually, I mean, in the space of sick control, card advantage engines, what do you think of the Immortal Sun as a potential standard build around? The Immortal Sun is that the new one from Rivals of Ixalan that's a 6-cost legendary artifact. Players can't activate loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 less. Creatures you control get +1/+1.
Wow. So this card has, well, it's 6. It's very expensive, but it has like 4 very, very compelling abilities, right? So I hesitate to imagine that there's very many decks that can take advantage of all 4 abilities. The most exciting, well, like the deck that I'm imagining that is taking advantage of spells you cast cost 1 less to cast is not getting that much action out of creatures you control get +1/+1, right?
Why not?
Like maybe like converting spells into tokens or something. I can see that.
Wait, okay, let me make sure I understand this. So your Rogue Refiner costs 2, your Longtusk Cub costs 1, your Whirler Virtuoso costs 2.
Oh.
All your Thopters get +1/+1.
Those are spells
all your
too.
cantrip dudes. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right, never mind. I guess creatures are spells. Okay.
You can literally just, like, it just seems like if you play with the Immortal Sun, you're colding all of your opponent's Planeswalkers. You're not playing with any because you're the type who plays with the Immortal Sun. You have Personal Howling Mine. You have an Anthem one-sided on your side. All your cards are super cheap. Like, you just, if this card, obviously there's like Abrades and Dissenters, Deliverances, and all that stuff, right?
And cast yeah.
Right, but if this card is just in play, you are overwhelming on like a lot of axes.
Yeah. Well, okay, this card costs 6. It's obviously powerful. Compare this to Sunbird's Invocation, right? These are two different they're 2 different spells that cost 6 that if you untap with it, you have a profound advantage.
Yeah, but you actually get a pretty good advantage from the Immortal Sun the moment you drop it. First of all, the Anthem, the +1/+1 is immediate.
Oh, good point.
Second of all, if you have any cards that cost a colorless, you can just play them for free. Now, obviously, how many of those do you really have in your hand on turn 6 or whatever? But let's suppose that you could actually play the Immortal Sun ahead of schedule. Because, like, what if you actually have Inspiring Statuary? Right? Like, if you had Inspiring Statuary, non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise, it's not going to help you get this card down any earlier. So forget that as the accelerator.
Well, how about
what about Rishkar? Yeah, like if you have Servant of the Conduit or Rishkar Pima Renegade.
Yeah, those are super plausible things to play that are also getting +1/+1. Or in the case of Rishkar, even more +1/+1.
So I don't know, man. I think that the fact that this thing comes down and like shuts off all their Planeswalkers, that's pretty interesting. The fact that even if you got nothing else going on, it Personal Howling Minds you.
Oh, that's
personal.
That's
like
awesome.
Personal Howling Mind. There have been a lot of formats where you would play with Personal Howling Mind for 5, right?
I think that the quest for Personal Howling Mind is like an enduring quest in Constructed Magic, right? How do I find the Personal Howling Mind? I'm down for any Personal Howling Minds that we can cast.
I mean, if you put this in your, so to begin with, you could put this in your your like, for instance, blue-black control deck. Like, if you put this, like, I don't know how many of this you would really use, but this is like a hell of a backup plan that dodges creature interaction. You're setting aside the vulnerability to things like a Braid. If you are facing somebody who has a bunch of stuff like Vraska's Contempt and Fatal Push and cards like that, if you drop the Immortal Sun, they are in super bad shape. Shutting off their Chandra, the fact that you can just make multiple big plays a turn, the fact that you could drop this on turn 7 and still have negate to protect it, and that's to say nothing of stuff like you're the Scarab God totally trumping they're the Scarab God.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why we can't use the Chart a Course refurbish engine for this?
No, you could if you wanted. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I think that you really want to be playing a deck that takes advantage of the game going on for a number of turns, so that like a lot, like this card is like very well made for a deck that can either grind like Jund or I guess Energy, or is like a control deck. You know, in particular, a control deck that makes lots of little creatures, though. You know, like a Decree of Justice style of control deck, you know, back when that was legal. But if that existed, something like that would be pretty sweet with this, too. You could do it with Chart a Course, I guess. It's just that once you're, like, the more, like, synergy, like, the more cards that you play with that are not good on their own, the more that you're setting yourself up to not really be a deck that takes advantage of Personal Howling Mine.
Yeah, because Personal Howling Mine, you want every card to be potentially impactful. Is that
you just want your cards to be good. It's like imagine using all kinds of different rituals and stuff to ritual out a Personal Howling Mine, and then you're just like drawing rituals and stuff.
I see.
You want to decompress the game, not compress it tighter. You want the game. You want to just. Like, this card lends itself exceptionally well to playing fair.
I imagine right now, when I look at this card, it's similar to a Mirari's Wake. Is that something that you can...
Sort of. So, it's not exactly the same thing as Mirari's Wake, because Mirari's Wake has so much of the power tied up in the Mana Flare part, the personal Mana Flare. And Personal Mana Flare has totally different incentives than Personal Howling Mine. Personal Mana Flare makes you want to have ways to spend tons of mana. You want to have X spells, or you want to have 10-cost spells, or 12-cost spells, or whatever, you know? And then, as a result, you very often have kind of a combo kill finish, because you just want to have a way to leverage that mana advantage as fast as possible.
Even if you're in a control shell.
Even if you're in a control shell, you don't want there to be a lot of extra untaps, because the more untaps that you let there be, the more you want there to be one often, but the more untaps you let there be, the more you're going to dissipate that enormous mana advantage you just got. By contrast, this card rewards you for doing the fair stuff for the most part. It rewards you for playing with, first of all, the more draw steps you can take, the more additional cards you'll draw. And the more spells you cast that cost at least one colorless in them, the more mana you'll save. And then if you don't play with Planeswalkers, then you're just getting a way to shut down opposing Vraskas and Chandras. Gideon, any of that. And Vraska's a big one, you know?
Well, yeah, especially I think a lot of decks that would rely on Vraska to remove this in another context. You know, that's
right, that's their artifact destruction.
Yeah, that's their catch-all to kill various kinds of permanents. So, yeah, I think this is a very powerful and interesting card.
Oh, yeah. It's also, think about how often you're interested in a sideboard card that will give you a new angle, right? Like, let's say you're playing some kind of a blue-white control deck. If you board in the Immortal Sun, your opponent may... Like, why would they keep a Braid in against you?
Yep.
And if they try to play with a Braid, man, it's hard to have a bunch of Braids in your deck if your opponent has just won the Immortal Sun in it. or something like that, you know,
Yeah,
or
their
2.
main deck has no artifacts.
Right. And if you're playing with some kind of a mid-rangey control deck against a blue-black deck, if you're playing some kind of mid-range deck and your opponent, let's say your opponent has Essence Scatter, the Immortal Sun is going to mess them up, right? If their deck is Essence Scatter, Fatal Push, Vraska's Contempt, the Immortal Sun is a beating.
Yes. I'm just imagining.
And that's, not even getting in any of the fancy stuff where you're getting this thing down ahead of schedule.
I'm just imagining the Immortal Sun and the Second Sun. They're going to be buddies. So the Immortal Sun makes the Second Sun cheaper, right? And you can, negate their response to the Second Sun because of the Immortal Sun.
And you get there twice as fast?
You do. Because it's I think this card's pretty cool.
Yep, I think this card's interesting. I think its primary use is probably just as a, like a random one-off in both main decks and sideboards for adding a different dimension, adding a card of a different, a permanent that is potentially problematic to remove that can both completely take over the game and also save your behind from planeswalkers.
Yeah, I actually think it could potentially have a role kind of like Lifecaster's Bestiary gets played, right? It's where a creature deck plays this weirdo artifact that gives an advantage, but like the examples you were stating, like cheaper Longtusk Cubs, cheaper Hydras, that's actually working, cheaper Rogue Refiners, and it's got a card advantage engine similar to Lifecrafter's Bestiary that actually saves you mana in the long run. It costs 3 more to start, but you don't have to, use G every time you draw an extra card.
Mm-hmm. So we got one more, man. This one's a reprint, but I know that this has got to be, this one's near and dear to your heart. Silvergill Adept.
Yeah, this card I think has 100% chance of seeing play in multiple formats. maybe 3 formats, because it already sees extensive play in 2 formats. So
Silvergill Adept, 1 in a blue, and this is a reprint, obviously, back from Lorwyn block, but 1 in a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Wizard. As an additional cost to cast Silvergill Adept, reveal a Merfolk card from your hand or pay 3. When Silvergill Adept enters the battlefield, draw a card.
Awesome. Awesome Magic the Gathering card.
At the very least, very efficient.
Yeah, like this guy he's like almost the only non-lord played in a lot of Merfolk decks, right? Like every other card in their deck is just a creature that gives other Merfolk +1/+1 and sometimes other abilities. But they always play this guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be enough Merfolk in Standard. We already were seeing a little bit of Merfolk action in the form of blue-green. Silvergill Adept, however, is a bananas reward. That is a very enticing reason to play with Merfolk. At the very least, you can get a lot of rate.
Well, you can also get a lot of material, right? Like you can combine this with, some of the new green Merfolk. There's a lot of exploring stuff. There's a lot of power that you can put together here. Some good synergies, good redundancies.
It is efficient.
We'll see if it contends with guys that have energy, but drawing cards is also good.
I mean, there's something coming together now. Like it's not nothing. Also, by the way, that Deeproot Champion, a Merfolk that's traditionally hard to use with other Merfolk, Deeproot Champion could potentially be paired with this. Which is the 1 in a G 1/1 when you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Deeproot Champion. And the reason I say that is that Silvergill Adept, the fact that you have the buyout of paying 3 extra, it's not like you want that to be the plan, but it's not actually indefensible to imagine a standard deck that only has say 10 or 12. Imagine if you had 4 Silvergill Adepts and then literally only 10 other Merfolk. maybe 8.
So your fail state is like a really bad mole drifter? Is that the...
Yeah. But, like, even if you only had 8 other merfolk besides your 4 Silvergill Adepts, the chance of being able to pair, to have at least, like, being able to play this guy in turn 2, you're still talking about, well better than a 2/3 chance, like 73%. Now, if you draw 2 Silvergill Adepts, you won't be able to play the second one on turn 3. But if you already got one down, maybe there's a chance to sneak the other one later. And that's not getting into stuff like cantrips, because the Deep-Root Champion is well served by cantrips like Opt.
Yep. I don't know. I'm not a buyer on the only 8 other merfolk strategy, but
we'll see.
We'll see. I think
I don't know if you only want to play 8, because I just think it's worth keeping in mind that Silvergill Adept can be played in a deck that isn't dedicated to merfolk. It doesn't mean that you ideally want to, but for instance, remember Ren's Run Vanquisher? You could play Ren's Run Vanquisher in a deck with Birds of Paradise, Hypnotic Spectre. Right, like, you don't have to be all elves for Ren's Run Vanquisher to be good. You just need to be enough. And I think the same is true for Silvergill Adept. I don't think you have to be all merfolk for Silvergill Adept. I think you just need to be enough.
Okay. Like you said,
we'll
see.
Silvergill Adept is better than Ren's Run Vanquisher, right?
Well, yeah, drawing a card is better than slightly more power.
But, Ren's Run Vanquisher, you would not bat an eye at the idea of somebody playing with 4 Ren's Run Vanquisher and 12 other elves. It's kind of, it's not that much. You look to see if there's more.
But the thing is, when you're playing Ren's Run Vanquisher in that kind of a structure, you want the games to be short, I think. And so the payoff is pretty high, even if you have a small number of elves. But Silvergill Adept in a long game, now you're stretching the game in a situation where you're paying 5 mana for a 2/1 draw card. I think that it's the opposite in my opinion.
I don't know, man. We'll see. Silvergill Adept, great card to get +1/+1 by the Immortal Sun.
I think I can agree with that. All right, well, that was all the new cards from Rivals of Ixalan that we've seen so far. I am super thankful that we were able to check all those out.
Yeah, it was nice for there to be so much giving of spoilers to be thankful for.
On the subject of giving, on the subject of thankfulness, there's one more thing I want to say that we're thankful for this week.
Obviously everybody tuning in. Everybody everybody that shares us on social media, everybody that doesn't share us on social media because the episode wasn't that good and they're like, you know what, they can do better. We'll hold out till next time. It doesn't matter, man. Whatever standard you got, because honestly, it's nice that you're listening and kicking it with us every week, and everywhere from all the sites, and of course the Michael J. extravaganza of Patreon.
This week we're super thankful for Nate Green.
Nate Green, thank you, man. Sincerely, it is super awesome to be able to chat the Magics every week.
Yep. So I gotta go eat turkey.
Nice life, man. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge, he's a jailer, hey. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind.